Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we're going to talk about ad blockers. Are they really going to all die in June of 2024? There's a lot of truth and a lot of error going around the internet, and we're going to dissect what is going on in this video today. So thanks for checking out this video. I wanted to spend some time today talking a little bit about ad blockers. There's all this weird buzz going on. Obviously, the first major thing is if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, Switch to Linux is also on Rumble and Odyssey if you want to watch it on over there. But YouTube just pushed out this thing where they're cramming they're doing the ad blocker blockers on people, right? So now we got this ad blocker blockers and the ad blocker blockers and ad blocker blockers. So it's this giant fight going on back and forth, as YouTube would like to tell people if you are trying to watch videos on YouTube, you either need to buy the subscription service that we just jacked up the price, or you have to disable your ad blocker and see more ads than content. That's one thing that's happening. Well, about 6 months to a year ago, there was some talk about them doing some changes which are going to kill ad blockers. And then they tabled that after a response to a lot of things. And then very quietly they started bringing it up. But this wasn't something the internet wanted to go down quietly. So it begs the question, are ad blockers really going to die? You see, if you dig into it a little bit deeper, there are tons of videos talking about how Google will soon kill ad blockers with Manifest v3, Firefox ad blocker future with Manifest 3, how Google is killing your ad blockers and tracker blockers with Manifest v3. You see all these. Of course, you have to include that Manifest v3 if you're searching for the ad blocker stuff, because otherwise you're just going to see about all of the YouTube losing the ad blocker war, and it kind of appears it might be. But that being said, all of this has to do with, you've heard it many times there, Manifest v3. Is there really truth behind this? Are all of the ad blockers going to die? Well, there is actually a lot more fiction in this argument than there is truth. We are going to go ahead and dissect that over the course of this video. We're going to talk about what Manifest v3 is. We're going to talk about the truth about the ad blocker situation, what solutions we can take, and at the end, why we really want ad blockers anyway. So don't go quietly into the night. Stick around to the very end of the video and I'll talk about why your Pihole might be your best guess. So if you're thinking, maybe I might want to tinker with a Raspberry Pi, I'm going to talk about why you might want to as the content at the very, very end of the video and what that might have to do with all of this. So let's go ahead and get started. What is Manifest v3? Manifest v3 is a new standard where we're talking about extensions onto web browsers and how these extensions work. And so a manifest, of course, thinking of a shipping manifest or a passenger manifest, describes all of the ins and outs and the details. And you have all of these extensions. You're going to have basically a sheet of instructions, a configuration file, or whatever it happens to be, and that is your manifest. This is an update to how the browsers manage the manifests, and as the browsers are managing these manifests, they're changing how the manifests interact with the browser. Mostly what they're wanting to do is they're going to put in a number of little changes, and in this project, they're going to be talking about service workers replace background pages. So instead of having to load a whole page in the background, there's going to be service workers that do some of these features. The network request modification. This is how the extensions interact with the network. They're going to be talking about remotely hosted code. This is the best thing about this, the remote hosted code. So an extension would be able to be on your system and then go out to some unknown third party and execute code and bring that code back. What the developers are wanting is to say, hey, all of that code has to be in here because we need this for verification. We don't want to have a case where, an old extension, they go out of business, yet they don't tell anybody, and some hacker buys that third-party domain and hosts malware. They don't want to run into a case where everything looks clean, but that server, because the extension developers want to run malware. There's all sorts of real issues why you want all of the functionality of the extension on the extension itself rather than relying on a remote service in order to function. So that is actually one of the very good things. The promise is that it's going to have better support and streamline the process. The reality is that's not entirely true. Now, it is new rules for declarations, like we said. The good news is that they're blocking the remote code. The bad news is that as it's being implemented in Google Chromium, which is the application that goes into Edge, it goes into Chrome, it goes into Brave, it goes into Vivaldi, and every other Chromium-based browser, which is most of the market, there is an arbitrary limit to APIs that are called in. And that really is what is at the center of the controversy. So as Ars Technica reported last week that Google Chrome will limit ad blocker starting in June 2024, most of their arguments are for doing this is going to be a little, they're not entirely important, but they're going to be arguments that there's really only one that interacts with the ad blockers. And that is actually down here, and they're talking about the limitations. So to be clear here, little parenthetical note. All right. It is the Chromium project, the open source Chromium project that is doing the Manifest v3. Of course, the Chromium project is run by Google. And so it is Google, but this is on the Chromium level. This is not on the Google Chrome end. So the difference between Chromium, which has all the open source code, and Chrome, which is where Google adds its proprietary blobs to do all sorts of other weird stuff. This is something on Chromium, which means it's going to be implemented on every browser based on Chromium, including the ungoogled Chromium, including Brave, including Edge, including Vivaldi, and including any other browser you might be using based on that open source Chromium code. Now, this is the relevant paragraph on this particular section. What is important? The one part of Manifest v3 that everyone can agree on will hurt ad blockers. The reason is there's an arbitrary limit to how many rules content filtering add-ons can include. So in the original rollout, Google was saying there's only 5,000 rules allowed, whereas uBlock Origin comes with 300,000 rules. After some back and forth, Google decided to be extremely generous and say that 30,000 rules are now going to be allowed. And so what this basically means is that uBlock Origin can still run, but only at a 10% efficiency. And so this gets us into the beginning of the truth. The truth is Manifest v3 is already implemented in all of your browsers. This is not dealing with Manifest v3. This is dealing with the end of Manifest v2, because right now all browsers can run Manifest v3 and can run Manifest v2. In fact, if you're using Firefox and you saw the update a few months back that put that stupid little add-on puzzle button up there at the corner that you can't get rid of, that stupid annoying thing, I hate it being on my screen. The reason you can't get rid of that is Firefox Manifest v3 extension manager. Any extension that utilizes Manifest v3, you can adjust from inside of that little puzzle piece. All right. v3 is already upon us. This is not v3 going to destroy us. What is going to destroy the ad blockers is going to be the depreciation and final ultimate removal of Manifest v2. And so, since Google dominates the web, because we let it dominate the web, Google and all other browsers, even Firefox, WebKit, everybody has to follow along. Otherwise, extension managers are simply going to stop working with every browser except Chrome. And then what happens is now we have a regression and going back to how the browsers were years ago, fragmentation all over the place, all sorts of issues. Whereas right now, utilize with the cross compatibility, as long as you're following Manifest v3, it will work on Chrome, Chromium, Edge, Firefox, LibreWolf, all of these because the extensions are the same. Now, the problem is that when Google finally shuts down Manifest v2, that is when every extension must be on Manifest v3. Now, the impact here is going to affect all browsers because we have let Google be the market leader. So if you're using Chrome, that's part of the problem. We're going to get into the solution right now. The solution to this is the limitation inside of this Manifest v3 is arbitrarily set by Google, and that is part of the implementation of how it is injected into Chromium. What this means is that while Firefox has Manifest v3, it has chosen to not include those API limits. And so what happens here is that Firefox allows all of these extensions. They allow uBlock Origin to continue working with all 300,000 content blocks because they do not want to limit ad blockers. They actually do not want to do that. And so with that, what's happening here is that Firefox has said, you can keep using ad blocks, you can keep using uBlock Origin or all of your favorite ad blockers. We're not limiting that code. So the ultimate solution is for all of us to switch our primary browsers over to a Firefox-based browser. So the browsers that are not going to be impacted by the limitations, in other words, the browsers that are going to fully allow the still full functionality under Manifest v3 of uBlock Origin, etc., Firefox, LibreWolf, WaterFox, Mulvad browser, the Tor browser bundle, all of these will have a Manifest v3 that allows the full capability of the extensions, not the crippled limitations that have been implemented by Google. So, Brave, let's talk about this, because Brave has basically been mostly silent about this issue. But the reality is with Brave, they're pretending this doesn't impact them, but the reality is it will. Now, Manifest v3 does not impact the Brave shield. So the built-in ad blocker in Brave is not impacted by the shift to Manifest v3. And so you saw some Twitter posts from them saying, yeah, we don't have anything to do with this. It doesn't matter. It's not going to kill our ad blocker. The sad reality is that Brave's built-in ad blocker is not nearly as good as most of the other ad blockers. In fact, with Brave's ad blocker turned on, I was still getting YouTube ads and even some of the promptings to disable your ad blocker. I had to disable Brave's built-in ad blocker and install uBlock Origin, and that solved all of the problems. And so with that being said, Brave is not going to fix it. They're not going to fix it. They're not taking a stance, but they're mostly being quiet because they really want to pretend that their built-in ad blocker is just as good as everything else. And the reality is their built-in ad blocker is actually not all that great. The other factor we have to think about, there is zero evidence for this, zero evidence. It is just a possibility. Brave is funded by big tech investments. If you go back and look at how the company is funded, they're funded by VCs, just like of other big tech companies. It is possible a company might work a backdoor deal to whitelist themselves on Brave's blockers. That is a possibility. I'm not saying it's happened. I'm not saying there's evidence of it. I'm saying it is a possibility how Brave works. We did see DuckDuckGo doing that. And so with DuckDuckGo doing that, it rings in suspicion. So on the official Twitter account on this community post, this is from the Brave community, somebody said, commented on this on Twitter. We've seen the headlines about Google killing ad blockers. 2 important points. Google's changes will not stop Brave from blocking ads. We will support uBlock Origin even after Chrome stops doing so. The problem is they can't unless they make radical changes to that Manifest v3, which they have not have any indication, and later statements have indicated that they will support it for as long as Chromium allows to support it. So If you dig through some of the community posts, you'll kind of get down. Brave has said they're not going to support V2 extensions after Google fully moves to V3. They're trying to be as evasive as possible to keep people from jumping ship to secure versions of Firefox where all extensions will continue to work correctly. Rust is nowhere near as effective as uBlock Origin and Ghostery, etc. And so that really is the ultimate issue. So the truth of the matter is that the issue is not with Manifest v3, it is the implementation that Google is doing. But since we have allowed Google to dominate the web, that is where we're running into the problems. Firefox is not going to be crippling it. Manifest v3 will still work perfectly well with all of the ad blocking scripts available to all of these different ad blockers. So if you want to continue having a functional web without ad blockers or without advertising, then you are going to want to switch to a Firefox-based browser. And this leads us to part 4. Why do we need ad blockers? Let's just keep using Chrome and just go on our merry way. Let's just not change anything. Change is hard. I know, it's so hard. There are 4 compelling reasons I have that we need to run ad blockers or have some other means of blocking ads on the internet. Number 1, the increase of malware being spread by what are called malvertising is well documented. If you catch our weekly news roundups on Friday nights or the edited versions that go out after that, you will know we talk about malvertising quite a bit. Malvertising is when a scammy company creates a lookalike site to a legitimate service, buys a bunch of ads on it, and then is redirecting people. And the top listing when somebody searches, for example, you type in Etcher because you're on Windows and you have to run an ISO drive writer because you're downloading some .iso file. You need to write it onto a USB drive. You search up Etcher on Google. All right. On Google, you will see a few ads first. One of those ads that was showing up for a while is a malicious website pretending to be Etcher. You go to the site, you download the button, and congratulations, you have just downloaded and installed malware onto your system. By blocking the advertising, you're going to block all those malvertisers, not to mention the scams that are also always advertising. Secondly, is it reduces bandwidth. I have very limited bandwidth as I travel the country in my mobile studio here in my van. I have very limited bandwidth. I do not want to be taking up 5 gigabytes of data a day running video advertisements that I don't even have the money to spend on your crap anyway. I don't want to see your ad. But if I'm running a good sufficient ad blocker, then I'm greatly reducing my bandwidth, making my money last longer, and allowing me to use the internet that I'm choosing to use rather than the internet that is hoisted upon me. So it's reducing your bandwidth. Number 3, it saves power. All you climate change guys, we need to cut power. Great. Stop running ads because the processing power your computer needs to take to run and serve and fetch the extra data and display the ads, I'm not saying it's a lot. I'm not saying it's 5%. I'm not saying it's 10%. But what if you can cut your power by 1%? What if everybody in the world cuts their power by 1% by blocking ads? We will have saved the planet. Happy planet, happy life. And number 4 is better performance. We will get way better system performance the fewer things that are trying to load on our systems simultaneously. 4 good reasons to use an ad blocker, and coming June 2024, this is only going to be available on a Firefox-based browser. And if you do that, we are going to reduce the power that Chrome has to make radical shifts like this. We have to focus on the fact that we need to stop Google from having the ability to radically shift the internet as they are doing right here. And that happens. Firefox is implementing Manifest v3 because they have to, because the stranglehold that Chrome has on the market. So when we do that, we are putting ourselves in a better spot. Bonus content. I talked at the beginning of the video why you might want to consider Pihole. Pihole is an application. You can run it on a virtual machine or you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. I have a full comprehensive tutorial about installing, setting up, and configuring it. That is still a valid video, even though it is a few years ago and I had a bad haircut and may not be as well as put together as videos I have now, but it is still an excellent video with excellent content, and everything to my knowledge is still good, and I'm going to review that again, make sure it's still good. Pihole is a way that you can create your own DNS. And creating your own DNS means that you can choose to block or not block things that gets to everything on your whole network. So you can block as many ads as you want. You can whitelist as many sites as you want. You can block all those nasty things that you don't want, all that kind of stuff. It will apply to phones on your network. It will apply to smart tech on your network. It will apply to the smart TVs on your network. All of these items, one Pihole will block all of those ads across. Now, they may not block the ad blockers. I don't know for sure. Now, it kind of depends on how frequently you're updating those scripts. There are a number of scripts that you can use. Some of the good scripts out there. Stephen Black is the most popular script. So he has these extensive scripts. You can tie these directly into Pihole, but you can also put these on your local computer as well, where if you want to come down here, this is adware and malvertising. Here's fake news, gambling and gambling, adware, malware. If you want to add the P word blockers, you got your social media blockers. Basically, you just come over here, you click on this link here, and these guys here are all of those known ad blockers. And yeah, there's a lot of them. You can drop this guy onto the hosts file of your computer and do a good local block, but it's way easier to run that on something like a Pihole, because the Pihole is going to allow you to update this script regularly. You see, Stephen Black updates the script all the time. In fact, this last update was updated from the time I'm recording this video yesterday. All right, so this is a great thing. You can tie directly into this GitHub page on your Pihole. It's going to block advertising across your entire computer network. Your smartphones on your network, your TVs, your computers, everything. I have a full comprehensive video and an accompanying article on the website. I will have that article on my website linked below. Then you can go and watch the video as well, read along with that. And that is probably your best methodology for blocking the advertising. It doesn't matter if you're on Chrome, doesn't matter if you're on Firefox, V3 doesn't matter, because you're not blocking ads in the browser, you're blocking it from ever entering your home's internet. So that is the best approach that you might want to do. So with that, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Let me know what you thought about this video. Definitely hit that like button down there and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. And as I said, we put this channel on YouTube, on Rumble, and on Odyssey, so you can find the content wherever you prefer to watch us. Have a look over the website, switchedtolinux.com. With that, thanks for watching, and hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.